right, joining me now to rip through the weekend of college football action is our guy, Brad Powers. Jake Butt will be with us in the second half of the program. Before we get into all the action, make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button right down there somewhere. Brad, how you making out today?
Hey, doing well. Looking forward to another nice slate of games this Saturday.
Oh, indeed. Okay, yeah. Before we get into all these games, let's recap what Brad gave out on Monday's show. If you want analysis for these bets, you can go back and watch the Monday appearance. So he gave out Minnesota +9, that's down to +8.5, and Michigan State +14.5. That's holding steady at a lot of spots. +14, I saw at DraftKings. Anything change with Minnesota going from +9 to +8? Obviously, you don't like it as much.
Yeah, I still like it though. I mean, obviously, I don't want to set myself up for failure here, but 9 and 8 aren't necessarily what I describe as key numbers in football. So with a very low total, and though every half point does matter, but I still like Minnesota here. I made the game 7.
Okay, let's add to those two best bets. Brad has three more, some short spreads here. Let's start with Miami, Ohio. They're favored by 1.5 points, and you like them to cover.
Yeah, I'll start off with the power rating. I actually made it 3.5. So, quite
Ooh.
a bit of, disparity here between my number and the line right now going through a key number of 3. So what's the deal? Why the mispricing? Well, Western Michigan, you look at it, is one of the hottest ATS teams in the country. They're 6-1 against the number. This is the time of year where you start paying a premium on those teams that cover point spreads on a weekly basis. On the other side, Miami, Ohio, they've won 4 straight. Should be 5 straight. They lost their quarterback in the game against UNLV. I'm wearing the hat. I watched the game well. I had Miami, Ohio as a best bet on this show. It's one of my few winners. So what happened in the game? Well, why am I thinking there's value there? Well, Miami, Ohio losing their quarterback ended up losing the game by 3. If they win that game, I don't think we're dealing with a 1.5 point spread here. So because of that, let's go with Miami, Ohio, the better team, laying less than a field goal at home.
Okay, next up we have Kansas State. They're a 3-point dog, and you like them to be competitive this weekend.
You'll like this, Joe, because you're all about stats and trends and whatnot.
Of
How about
course.
Kansas State? This is a key rivalry. It's been a lopsided rivalry. Kansas State has won 16 straight times over
Woo,
Kansas. This is
damn.
the first time Kansas State is an underdog in this rivalry since 2009. Simple for me, serious history, plus the power rating has it less than a field goal as far as Kansas. And you got to learn how to win before you learn how to cover if you're Kansas. I'll take the disrespected big brother here catching the field goal here. Let's take Kansas State +3.
Hell yeah, I'm not going to bet against that trend. Okay, third best bet, Baylor, a +3.5 point dog. You like them to take care of business.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about Cincinnati, who's won 6 straight games, all is well. I don't think they've faced that tough a slate of opponents. This is one of the better teams that they've faced. Meanwhile, Baylor's, played a much tougher schedule, and about every one of their games comes down to the wire. This is a Baylor team that, to me, is a little bit more hardened on the season. Plus, the power rating, again, I always defer to that. Has it less than a field goal? We're catching more than a field goal here. Let's take Baylor +3.5.
Okay, let's rip through the rest of the schedule with some leans for Brad. Before we get into the Saturday games, four total games on Thursday and Friday. No ranked teams in action. Anything stand out to you there, Brad?
Yeah, on Friday night, I'm going to take Cal +5.5. Again, it's going to sound like a broken record. Power ratings has it less than a field goal. So, Cal is kind of an up and down Jekyll and Hyde team because of a true freshman quarterback. But the reason I kind of like Cal is actually, I'm going against their opponent, Virginia Tech. And I know you're thinking Friday night, Lane Stadium, great atmosphere. Virginia Tech, in my opinion, is just playing out the season. They already fired their coach, they got an interim. And to me, Virginia Tech coming off a bye with an interim, I think that's kind of a negative. You're talking about a coaching staff probably talking with the family, where are we going to be living next year? You got student athletes that are transferring from the program. Where are they going to play next year after the new regime comes in? I just think it's a distracted football team. Let's take Cal +5.5 and Virginia Tech team total under 27.5. They have not touched 27 points in any game against an FBS opponent this year.
Ooh. Okay, on to Saturday we go. Let's start with UCLA taking on Indiana. Big spread here. Indiana favored by 25.5 points, total 54.5. Early start for UCLA, who's hot all of a sudden, three straight wins after that 0-4 start. Now, Indiana beat them pretty easily last season. They beat them by 29 points. Would you expect a similar result this season?
Well, that's why the point spread's quite huge here. I'm going to lean towards the huge dog because I just think they're a fundamentally different team the last 3 weeks with the interim and a new OC and a new DC. I just think it's tough to get margin on a team that's playing relatively slower tempo. The UCLA and Indiana, I think is going to take this game seriously. Obviously, disadvantage start time for UCLA playing a 9 a.m. Pacific start time, but that's all the reason why it's 25 and a half. I made it 24, so let's lean UCLA.
Okay, next up we have Syracuse taking on Georgia Tech, favored by 17 and a half points here, total 52 and a half. Syracuse beat them, tight game last season. They beat them by 3 points, 31-28. Syracuse in rough form coming into this one, three straight double-digit losses for them. Do you think they can be competitive at all in this game?
No, I don't think so. I question it. And why has it been a rough stretch for Syracuse? Fundamentally different team playing with the backup quarterback. Their offense is completely compromised the last 3 games compared to last time we saw their starter out there. They're beating Clemson on the road with Steve Angeli. Ricky Collins just doesn't have it offensively. And let's play into that here and why we lean under 52 and a half. Just again, Syracuse. I don't expect much from them offensively. And I don't think Georgia Tech has motivation for margin here. They have a running quarterback in Haynes King. Let's protect him a little bit, have him avoid some shots here as they get closer and closer to making the ACC championship game under 52 and a half lean.
Okay, next up, we got a big one. Ole Miss taking on Oklahoma, who's favored by 5.5, total 54 and a half. So a couple 6-1 teams with aspirations of at least making the playoff here. Here's a trend for the people. Oklahoma, a perfect 0-7 to the under. All seven of these games have seen 45 combined points or less, total 54 and a half. Do you think that under trend continues, Brad?
I certainly lean that way on the under, but I also think Oklahoma's the sharper side here. So let's combine the two. It's kind of a 1 + 1 = 3 as far as I'm concerned. Let's play into Oklahoma being the right side and the total under being the right. And let's go Ole Miss team total under 24 and a half. And I know
Ooh.
people are going to say, how can you play Ole Miss under 24 and a half? They went up and down the field against Georgia last week and put 35 and 3/4. I think people got short term memory. I mean, the previous 2 games, they scored 24 against LSU. They scored 24 against Washington State. And now they're facing the best defense that they'll see all year. Oklahoma has the best defense in the SEC. And oh, yeah, by the way, Oklahoma has not allowed any opponent this year to top 23 points. I like this quite a bit. Let's go Ole Miss team total under 24 and a half.
Okay, next up, Alabama looking to stay hot. They're taking on South Carolina at South Carolina. The Gamecocks a 12.5 point dog, total 47.5. Bama a good bet this season, 5-1-1 against the spread. They barely snuck by the Gamecocks last season, though, a 27-25 win in a game where they were favored by 21 points. Do you think South Carolina can compete with them again this season?
I have my doubts, but I also have my doubts on Alabama being an A effort from them. They just beat 4 straight ranked opponents, and now you're facing a struggling team. So I have my doubts on if we're going to get Alabama's A effort offensively and a sharp Alabama offense. But also, you got a South Carolina team that's very compromised offensively, especially on the offensive line where they've already fired their offensive line coach. Let's combine the two. Let's lean under 47 and a half here.
Okay, next up, 15 Missouri taking on number 10 Vanderbilt. Vandy favored by 2.5, total 51.5. Both teams coming off big wins. Missouri has dominated head to head, so 5 straight wins against them, wins in 8 of the last 9. Do you think that pattern continues?
I don't. I'm starting to believe in this Vanderbilt team. I'm gonna lean with them -2.5 in this game. I made it 3, so obviously we're under that key number. The worry would be, hey, college game days there. Vanderbilt's playing with expectations. How is a program like Vanderbilt going to handle this? Well, they've handled it, in my opinion, well the last 2 weeks. They were better than the final against Alabama. They had 2 red zone turnovers in that game, a game that I liked Alabama, I bet Alabama in the game, felt fortunate. And then last week, I actually, Vanderbilt won. They covered. I think it could have been worse against LSU as far as, they could have beaten them by double digits. This is a legit top 15 type of team, and I think they'll handle the expectations well. I don't like Missouri. Probably should have lost last week on the road against Auburn. Now back to back road trips for them. Let's lean Commodores here -2.5.
Okay, two more to go. BYU taking on Iowa State, who's favored by 2.5 points on their home field. 48.5 is the total. BYU undefeated. Iowa State has lost 2 straight. Do you think BYU can retain that O on their record, Brad?
No, I don't. I like Iowa State here, -2.5. Now you might have to lay a little bit extra juice to get that 2.5, maybe -120. But love the spot here for Iowa State. Off a buy low, off back-to-back losses, sell high for BYU off, a big win over their rival, an outright upset win, undefeated, kind of a fraudulent 7-0 team. Certainly not deserving. If you look at power ratings compared to the AP poll, that don't deserve to be in a top 10. I don't think anybody doing power ratings has BYU that high. So the spread is telling you that Iowa State's the right side. What I'm surprised and why it's not a best bet for me is it seems like the point spreads all over this where we're not getting a huge discount on Iowa State. So that's why it's a like at -2.5 and not a best bet. I was expecting this line to be pick earlier this week.
Okay, let's wrap things up with number 3, Texas A&M, undefeated on the season at LSU. LSU is a home dog here, plus 2.5, total 48.5. Everyone hating on the Tigers after dropping 2 of their last 3. All their fans want Brian Kelly out of town. Do you think it's a good week to back them?
I do. This would be a best bet if it ever got to 3, and I think it might on game day because there's so much negativity around LSU right now. Brian Kelly's, is he on the way out? Can we afford the buyout? Here's what I do know about Brian Kelly. I'm not a big fan of him, but what he's done at LSU is he's gone 19-1 straight up in home night games. Night
Ooh.
game, Death Valley is the best atmosphere in college football on a consistent game in and game out game in game out basis. And A&M to me, yes, they're undefeated, but only won by 3 against Arkansas, only won by Auburn by 6, benefited from a non-holding call against Notre Dame. They're teetering on a team with 1 or 2 losses already, so I think they're a little overpriced in the market. I think LSU wins this game. So if it got to 3, you're talking best bet material for me.
Okay, there you have it, Brad. We will leave it at that for today. Thank you, as always, for joining. Best of luck with all your bets on the weekend, and we will catch you again on Monday.
Thanks for having me.
All right, joining me now to break down the best games and biggest storylines of the week is our guy, former Michigan Wolverine and Denver Bronco, current analyst at the Big Ten Network. He also looks like he has a fresh haircut. Our guy, Jake Butt. Jake, how you making out today?
I'm doing good now that you noticed the haircut, Joe. I mean, what a way to start the day. You make me blush, man. Thank you.
This guy's on TV. You got to get your hair. You probably what? You're getting your haircut once a week, I would imagine.
Every other week, we can't do it every week. All right. I mean, I'm not a beauty queen over here, but every other week I think fits the standard.
Indeed. Okay, so we got some ranked matchups this week that we're going to get into. Of course, Michigan State. We're going to get into that rivalry, but let's start with this. It's funny if you go back to the start of the season and look at the odds to win the national championship. Of course, you had Texas near the top. Penn State was obviously in the mix. LSU was in the mix. Clemson was in the mix. A lot of teams underperforming, disappointing this season. Going into this weekend, who is the number 1 bust in college football this season, Jake?
I mean, pick your poison of any team you just mentioned. I just have to go with Penn State for how hard they've fallen. I mean, you could really make a case for any one of those teams, but I look at Penn State. I mean, they're booing their head coach at home against Oregon. They're chanting "Fire Franklin" at home, and then they stage a comeback, and then they take a lead against Oregon. Oh my gosh, are they going to really pull this off? They're gonna beat Oregon. They're right back in it. And then they let it slip right through their fingers. And that one loss turned into another, and then it turned into another. And then you fire your head coach, and then you bring in the interim head coach, Terry Smith. And I'm thinking, hey, they got a chance to beat Iowa. I mean, this is the exact type of UCLA situation. And then they just lose that game as well with all the opportunities they had. They have just fallen. The players, I think this is why I choose them too, is Drew Aller before he got hurt regressed. Singleton as a running back regressed. Your veteran offensive line regressed. You got the highest paid defensive coordinator in all of college football. They look lost out there. I can't think of a team with a bigger gap between expectations because of proven players and coaches to where they're performing right now. It's just unbelievably disappointing for the Nittany Lions.
Okay, so as a result of that handful of teams kind of falling out of contention, that's really opened the door for a lot of other teams. Which team do you think has been the most pleasant surprise so far this season?
Look, I think you could take UCLA. I mean, they've become the story of this season. It's absolutely shocking. I mean, that's a team that literally talk about just like a rebound, like bang hit rock bottom, and then holy cow, now Indiana. You listen to Kurt Signetti talk about this matchup this weekend, and he he gives a ton of respect to their operation. But I would say Indiana is the surprise, and I think people knew that Indiana would be good. I think it was year two Signetti. We all liked their roster. I don't think anyone expected them to be this good. I don't know anyone that expected them to go on the road and beat Oregon, and particularly why I say they're the big surprise. They dominated Oregon at the line of scrimmage. As good as last season was, this team is significantly better. And if you look at all the advanced analytics and metrics, this is truly one of the more dominant teams in all of college football. If you just look at the advanced stats, they are absolutely the second best team behind Ohio State in all of college football, and they are legitimately a national title contender. They're not just a good story. I think last year you could say they were a great story. Why I'm picking them as like the surprise is they're no longer a good story. They are a legitimate national title contender. No one's going to want to see them in the postseason.
Okay, so I think at this point of the season, we can all agree that the expectations coming into the season for Arch Manning were pretty unfair, but still a very underwhelming season for Arch here. 4 games with 170 or fewer passing yards. He's 103rd in completion percentage, just at 60%. Um, how confident are you that Arch will be QB number one playing at Texas next season, or is it ridiculous for me to even be asking that?
I don't think it's ridiculous because the things within his control, he doesn't look like a quarterback that's maximizing what he can do. I mean, like his fundamentals don't look great. He looks rushed. He looks uncertain. But then I peel back the layers and I say, it's not all Arch's fault. The offensive line has been an extreme disappointment this year. It's the other guys around him, I would say. Like when you're starting a new quarterback, and I understand the expectations for Arch were sky high, that doesn't mean the other 10 guys can take their foot off the gas. It's been a disappointing year for the offense as a whole, particularly the offensive line. I believe he's been like one of, if not the most hit quarterback in the SEC. That's just not a winning formula. And clearly that's getting into his head a little bit. I think that even just started the Ohio State game with Arvell Reese running him down and just bruising him up and knocking the wind out of him. And it's just carried on throughout the season. That was one of the big strengths last year for Quinn Ewers is he had stability all around him. And that's just college football these days is the teams are too spread out. The talent is too spread out. You need to win by playing team football. And right now, Texas is not playing team, or at least as it applies to Arch, unit offensive football. The offensive line has been extremely disappointing. So I would say that would be my focus if I'm Sark is let me give my guy a stable offensive line. Let me get him a dominant run game. I bet Arch will look better with that.
Shout out Quinn Ewers, future QB1 for the Miami Dolphins. Okay, a big rivalry game this weekend. Michigan taking on Michigan State. Of course, this is something you've been a part of. Is the hatred there legit, or is it overstated? Bring us inside this rivalry a bit here, Jake.
The hatred is legitimate, and I think one of the big mistakes for Jonathan Smith, the Michigan State head coach last year, and he's even acknowledged this, is he said, "Oh, I didn't realize how important this rivalry was. I can't believe a head coach said that." But at least he acknowledged it. I mean, he came from the Oregon State rivalry, which shares some similarities, right? It's an in-state rivalry. There's a premier school Oregon against the underdog Oregon State. And I think Jonathan Smith said, "Hey, it'll be the same." It's not the same. I mean, there is true hatred. I mean, I understand the stigma around saying the big brother, little brother thing, but that's a real element here. And the winner gets to say, "Hey, we're the big brother, they're the little brother." And hey, I've been the little brother too. Michigan State has called us the little brother, and it absolutely effing sucks when you have to hear that for a year. But I'll tell you this, like on Monday morning, Sharon Moore and when it was Jim Harbaugh, when you get into a team meeting, they are very clear in addressing the offensive line and everyone on offense. They say, "Hey, if you do not have the ball, you follow the ball carrier. And when he gets tackled, we need 3 guys helping him up off the ground because it's just a reality. Who knows what's going on at the bottom of that pile?" It's one of those type of games, you know? And I remember my adrenaline had never been higher than when I would play Michigan State. We had like a team outbreak of like strep throat and hand, foot, mouth my senior year,
Oof.
and guys were so sick. And yet all of us played, and I think we were just riding on pure adrenaline, knowing this was going to be like an ancient Viking war down there in East Lansing. So there is absolute hatred in this rivalry. I played in Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. Ohio State, Michigan, the first word that comes to mind, respect. It's going to be physical. It's going to be a dogfight. Michigan State is like a backyard brawl between like true hated rivals. And I think that's really fun too. And the fans embody that energy as well.
Hell yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how the teams match up this season. Michigan favored by 14.5 points. What are their biggest advantages in this game, and what's something maybe the Spartans will be able to exploit?
Their biggest advantage is at the line of scrimmage. Just frankly, they're the better team, and they have to play for 60 minutes as the better team, just like they did last week against Washington. I mean, that team that we saw Michigan play against the Huskies is capable of beating everyone. It was a dominant performance in all three phases, minus the punting, for all four quarters. So if you carry that game plan on the road, you should win this one handily. Specifically, they need to have rush lane discipline. Damon Williams, the Washington quarterback, is a really dangerous runner. Aiden Childs, Michigan State's quarterback, is a very capable runner and playmaker outside of the quarterback. So for Michigan and Wink Martindale, who likes to send pressure, you kind of have to sacrifice a little bit of that pressure in a bubble to try to just force the pocket to collapse and force Childs to beat you and make good decisions from the pocket. It's not something he does. Where Michigan State would have an advantage is they got playmakers. Nick Marsh, their wide receiver Kelly, their ability to just push the ball down the field with Childs when he's not turning the ball over. They can attack a weak and young Michigan secondary outside of Jair Hill, their cornerback one. So they'd have to get it through explosive plays. I think Michigan State would want to turn this into a shootout and make it a little bit messy. I don't know that Bryce Underwood is capable quite yet of winning a shootout with his arm. So Michigan seems much more comfortable playing with a lead. If you're Michigan State, maybe you consider taking the ball first here and trying to really put the pressure on Michigan. It's one of those games.
Okay, we have a trio of ranked matchups on Saturday. Let's break them down. Let's start things off with number 8, Ole Miss, taking on number 13, Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 5.5. Both teams 6-1 on the season, and a win by either team will really improve their chances of making the playoff. What are we thinking here? Do you give Ole Miss much of a shot as an underdog on the road?
Well, I do want to just make a statement and just lay out where we're at in college football this week, because we're going to preview some SEC matchups that are awesome. And it is like a fork in the road, a revealing week. The teams that come away victorious this weekend, great chance they'll be in the playoff. The teams that lose, it's going to be a real uphill battle. The same is true in the Big Ten, though, Joe. There is 3 matchups between 6 total teams that are 5-2 in the Big Ten. So there it is. If you become 6-2 or 5-3, like, it is a true truth revealing weekend across college football. That's the benefit of the 12-team playoff, is we get to sell these games as effective mini play-in playoff games. All right, so to Ole Miss, Oklahoma, I think this is going to be true for a few types of matchups, and it's a battle of identities. It's Ole Miss's explosive offense against Brent Venables' defense. And what we heard this week is Lane Kiffin kind of talking about the sign stealing that Brent Venables likes to do. I know this has been a story going back to my alma mater last year, but it is very real. So what does Lane do to counter that? You hear the infamous Mike Leach stories where he would leave a 10-play script for the opponent to pick it up to then counter what he expects the opponent doing to that 10-play script. I wonder if Lane comes in here with double moves off of some of his base plays, because it's really hard to consistently move the ball against Oklahoma's defense. I think what you got to do is try to find explosive plays, and they don't really do that. Here's the key here. Oklahoma's pressuring quarterbacks at 47% of their dropbacks. That's top in the SEC. They also lead all the Power 4 in sacks. They call blitzes at the 5th highest rate in Power 4. So that is just like the identity of Brent Venables, and they are just going to attack and send pressure at you. This is the key, though. Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback, this is like you got to like invert what you would think about quarterback play. He has a higher grade against the blitz and when facing pressure than when in a clean pocket. When facing pressure, he has a 78.5 PFF grade. That's number 3 in the FBS. In a clean pocket, it's only a 74.2, which is 104th when he's
Wow.
been pressured. So when teams have sent blitz at him, he has a 77.5 PFF grade. That's 32nd among quarterbacks. When they don't blitz him, it's 72.6, which is 74th. So there it is. It seems like this is a game where Oklahoma is when they send their pressure, can Trinidad kind of break out the pocket and make plays? I think one of the key here for the Sooners is going to be their second schedule secondary. When the Ole Miss quarterback in pass game, it's off schedule. When he leaves the pocket, can you defend the second order play and not allow Ole Miss to beat you with explosives down the field? That's the key. And then, obviously for Oklahoma's offense, Mateer's back getting a little bit healthier. They need to run the ball. That's just going to be the key. Run the ball to give your defense some breathing room on the sideline.
Okay, next up, we have a matchup between 15 Missouri and 10 Vanderbilt. Vandy favored by 2.5 points here. Both teams coming off big wins. Jake, who do you think can keep it rolling in this one?
Well, it's going to be another fun game. Once again, it's maybe the story of the SEC with Diego Pavia. I mean, he's been a wizard all year. He's just been making plays across the board. Again, I go back to these PFF grades because they do really tell a story. He's been great once again in high pressure situations. When teams have sent pressure at him, he has a 68 PFF grade under pressure. That includes 5 big time throws. So he seems to be at his best in the highest pressure situation. Those 5 big time throws are 5th in all of college football. So he's doing something that not many other quarterbacks do. Why that matters, Mizzou is number 3 in pressure rate in all of college football. So Mizzou's defensive line, particularly their edge rushers, that's where they make their money. They get home and making opposing quarterbacks really uncomfortable. The key is pressure rate versus sacks. Can that Mizzou defensive line turn pressure into sacks? Because if not, Pavia is going to break out of the pocket, and he's a playmaker similar to be careful what I'm saying here, but similar to a Johnny Manziel. On the
Ooh.
flip side, the Mizzou run game, that's going to be the key. And I wonder when the chickens will come home to roost. I mean, it's been Ahmad Hardy, their running back, who's been an absolute stud, but you follow their offensive line grades. It's really kind of leveled out. They've been an average offensive line in terms of run blocking in conference play. They've really just not been dominant. It's been about the Mizzou running backs being able to break tackles and make something out of nothing. Eventually, that's going to hurt you. So if you're Vanderbilt, it's about pursuing, getting hats to the football, and gang tackling on Mizzou's running backs. It's just day one football, like playing disciplined football and getting hats to the running back to bring him down, not allowing him to break tackles.
Okay, Jake, there's a prop bet in this game that you would like to pinpoint as one of your best bets of the week. What are we looking at?
It pains me to say this because I love tight ends. I played tight end. That's the Mackey Award right
Hell
here. I
yeah.
won it for the nation's top tight end. And in Vandy's tight end, Eli Stowers, he could end up winning the Mackey this year. He's one of the best tight ends in all of college football. You look at his receiving yards, the line is set at 48.5. Now, he's capable that he could hit that number over on any one play. And what scares me is Diego Pavia, if it went in these off-schedule throws, maybe Stowers gets loose, he could hit that. But I'm going to take the under in this one, Joe, and here's why. You look at his season averages, they've been skewed by non-SEC play. He has not hit over that number one time in SEC play this year. So I'm just going to follow the trend here and say that once again, he'll be productive, but he's not going to hit the over 48.5 against the Mizzou defense. I'll take the under.
Okay, another good-looking matchup. Number 3, Texas A&M taking on LSU, traveling to LSU. The Tigers are an underdog here, plus 2.5 points. What do you think the vibes are like for LSU players and Brian Kelly, just 1-2 in their last 3 games, taking on this undefeated Texas A&M team?
Well, I'd say the vibes are absolute focus this week, understanding the opportunity you have at hand. This is a season defining opportunity, a great opportunity. And the key here is you're playing at home, night game in Death Valley. I love A&M as a team. I love their ability to control games at the line of scrimmage. I think that's been a big storyline and deciding factor across all of college football this year. But man, another one is these road tests, especially in the environments like what we're seeing, what we'll see Saturday night in Death Valley. It scares me a little bit. Here's really the key, though. is if you're going to play in a raucous environment, if you're going to play where LSU's typically at their best, the fan base is going to be rowdy. What needs to travel? Well, it's what Texas A&M has. It is dominant play at the line of scrimmage. So let's talk about it with when LSU has the football. Garrett Nussmeier, we thought he was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football this year. I thought LSU's offensive line was going to be a very serviceable, if not one of the best offensive lines in college football. That has not been the case. The LSU offensive line has struggled, particularly at the tackle position, and now they're injured, facing a Texas A&M defensive line that gets after you. Nussmeier is not Jaden Daniels. He does not have an ability to make you miss and make you pay using his legs. So can LSU's offensive line protect their quarterback? And then the flip side is can LSU match the physicality and intensity of Texas A&M's offensive line and their ability to run the ball and hurt you with the quarterback run once again? So I really do like A&M. I think this is a season-defining opportunity for them as well, and I think they win because of the line of scrimmage, Joe.
Okay, Jake, best bet number 2. You have something on your radar for a game with a pretty big spread here this weekend. What are we looking at?
Yeah, I like Oregon at home to cover the 30.5 point spread against Wisconsin. I have buddies that played for the program. I've obviously watched them play, including their game against Ohio State. What you never want to be, you would rather be a program with a pissed off fan base. What scares me about Wisconsin is the fan base has become apathetic. They just don't even care anymore. That is really, really concerning. And I think that bleeds down to the locker room. They just got their butts whooped last week. Now you're going across the country to a pissed off Oregon team who's still pissed off about losing to Indiana. They sent a message to college football on the road against Rutgers last weekend. They're going to try to send another message against Wisconsin. And unfortunately for the Badgers, they're just the next team in the Ducks' way. I think Oregon wins big behind Dan Lanning, trying to send a message. He doesn't care about optics or what you think about him. He's there to do his job.
Okay, let's wrap with an NFL question. Parity is the theme of the NFL season as we approach the midway point of the year. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are really going in the right direction. I would have them at number 1 in the NFL, but I don't know if there's any team that you would call great. There's a bunch of surprise teams, a bunch of teams who are underperforming. Who do you think a team that's been overperforming is a little bit of a fraud? And which team do you think could have a monster second half in store?
I love the Bucks. I mean, I love Baker Mayfield. I love their offense. I just love the Bucks, but I have to call it for what it is it has been late game theatrics and hero ball and just crazy endings to get them to their current record. And is that sustainable for a season? I mean, the Chiefs did it last year, right? Until it didn't work in the Super Bowl. I don't know if the Bucks have like the gravity and the mental acumen to plant fear in their opponents the way the Kansas City Chiefs do. But so far, they've been able to win these close games late, and that is something. I just think eventually, the scales are going to be tipped. It's hard to win games like that for the full season. So I'd say I'd expect the Bucks to maybe regress to the mean as the season goes back on before heating back up for the playoffs. I still love the Bucks. Teams that I'm looking for that could really pop in the second half. The Baltimore Ravens with
Yes.
Lamar getting healthy once again. I mean, the defense is seriously an issue, but when you have a healthy Lamar, they can put up points. And then how about the Bengals though, right? I mean, how about Joe Flacco? This is why that trade was just so like you hear Mike Tomlin. I'll take his words for it. He was baffled that the Browns
Yeah.
would give the Bengals Joe Flacco. And the reason is that's the perfect quarterback to play behind their offensive line. He's a 40-year-old. He doesn't want to get hit. So he's going to get the ball out quick with accuracy, tempo, and pacing. That's just the perfect. He seems like the perfect guy to just get them to ride close enough to maybe make some noise late in the season. And hopefully Joe Burrow is healthy and can come back and take them home for maybe a playoff push. That would be a fun storyline to watch.
Yeah, pretty simple game plan. Target Jamar Chase 15 to 20 times, and you're
Why
going to
not?
get your 30 points probably. Okay, Jake, we'll leave it at that for today. Thank you as always for joining. Best of luck with those bets that you're placing, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Thank you, Joe. See you next week.